All right, welcome. I want you to imagine something for a second. Look at our world, the offices, the politics, all those social gatherings we go to. Now, what if you saw it not as a society, but as a zoo? Today, we're going to dive into the mind of a writer who saw humanity as exactly that, a huge and honestly a pretty hilarious exhibition.
I know, it sounds like a weird question, right? But believe me, it's the key to unlocking the work of one of Britain's absolute sharpest social commentators. You see, he looked at the enclosures, the zookeepers, the way the animals acted, and he saw a perfect, almost perfect, mirror of our own lives.
So who was the man behind this unique and critical lens? His name was Angus Wilson, and you can think of him as a kind of literary surgeon, someone who just expertly dissected the society he saw all around him.
So, who was Angus Wilson, really? Well, he was an absolute giant of 20th century British literature. And his special talent? It was like he had this X-ray vision for social situations. It let him see right through all the polite stuff people do, the facades they put up, and get straight to the messy, complicated truth hiding underneath. Okay, so what exactly did this X-ray vision of his show him? Well, Wilson was absolutely obsessed with the big questions, things like identity, morality, and what was going on with post-war British society. His work is always digging into that universal struggle we all face, right? The battle between who we really are and who society is telling us we have to be.
But here's the thing. His genius wasn't just about what he saw, it was about how he showed it to us. His writing wasn't just critical, it was also brilliantly witty. He'd create these incredibly detailed characters, often flawed, but always deeply human. And then he just dropped them right into situations designed to test their very core.
Okay, to really get a grip on Angus Wilson, we've got to go back to the beginning, back to his debut novel. And this was a book that wasn't just foundational for his career, it was pulled directly from his own life experiences.
Yeah, Hemlock and After. It was a total bombshell when it came out. Because it was semi-autobiographical, it basically set the tone for his entire career, tackling these themes he knew so intimately. And for its time, man, publishing this was an act of incredible bravery.
I mean, you have to remember, this was an era when homosexuality was still illegal in Britain. We're talking about a time of serious repression and social stigma. And into that world, this book comes along and offers this stunningly candid look into the life of a gay man. It's just this powerful story about that internal battle, right, between personal desire and what society demands of you. It's no wonder it's considered a true landmark in LGBTQ literature.
All right, so let's circle back to that question I asked at the very beginning. We're about to head into Wilson's most famous work, the one that really perfectly encapsulates his entire worldview. Welcome to the Human Zoo.
So, with his novel The Old Men at the Zoo, this is where Wilson really lets loose. He unleashes his full satirical power. He takes what seems like a totally normal setting, a London zoo, and just brilliantly transforms it into a perfect miniature version of our whole society.
And this, right here, is the absolute core of his argument. He used the zoo to satirize, everything. Our politics, our petty power struggles, our anxieties about getting older, all those ridiculous social rules we follow without even thinking. The zoo wasn't just a background, you see. It was the satire.
And just look at how neatly it all breaks down. So you've got the enclosures, right? Those are basically our social rules and conventions. Then you have the keepers. They're the people in charge, the politicians, the bosses, you name it. And all that weird animal behavior, that's us. That's our traditions, our power plays, our social posturing. It's a perfect and kind of devastating comparison when you think about it.
Creating satire that's this sharp, it isn't just about being funny or being critical. There's more to it. Wilson actually had this carefully honed method, a kind of unique artistic process for putting the whole human condition right under the microscope. So here it is, the Wilson method, if you want to call it that. First, he just observed. He'd notice all the absurd little things people do in their daily lives. Then, he'd apply that signature wit of his, not just to make fun of it, but to really critique it. But here's the crucial step. He'd add this deep psychological analysis. And that's what let him reveal the complex, often contradictory truths about who we really are. And it wasn't just novels either. That critical eye of his was everywhere. Wilson was also a really prolific essayist and critic. He turned that sharp intellect of his on basically everything. Art, literature, the biggest social issues of the day. He wasn't just a storyteller. He was a true public intellectual. So that brings us to the big question, right? What is his lasting legacy? I mean, why are we still talking about an author from the middle of the 20th century today?
Well, the answer is actually pretty simple. He earned his spot. He absolutely stands as one of the most significant British authors of the 20th century. He was a voice that just captured the anxieties and the absurdities of his time like almost nobody else could.
So when you boil it all down, Angus Wilson was so much more than just a novelist. He was that social surgeon, remember? Using his wit like a scalpel. He gave a sharp, critical voice to post-war Britain. He pushed boundaries by exploring identity with a kind of honesty that was really rare back then. And he left us with a body of work that, honestly, feels just as insightful and relevant today as it did then.
And that really just leaves us with one final thought. Wilson held this incredibly clear mirror up to his own time. So, if he were here today, looking at our world, with our social media, our 24/7 news cycle, our culture, what parts of our human zoo do you think he'd choose to put on display? Something to think about.